Hello, fellow Rotarians and guests. I'm Lori Alton, and I'm honored to serve as your club president for the Rotary year 2021-2022. The Rotary Club of Columbus has a storied past, beginning in 1915, when a group of civic-minded people saw the need for leaders to come together to find ways to make our community better. And now, 106 years later, we're a vibrant, strong club that continues to place service above self. Our club is diverse, with members across all sectors of business, government, military, healthcare, education, nonprofit and community service, ministry, and the arts. And we come together each week as friends with a shared purpose of learning how we can be more involved in the things that matter to all of us. And we leave committed to changing our community and changing lives. As Rotarians, we are people of action, and it shows. So welcome back to Rotary. Thank you for being here, and thank you for making a difference in our community. Well, hello and welcome to the February 16th meeting of the Rotary Club of Columbus. I love it when we have to put out extra tables. It's so good to see all of you. For those of you watching at home and online, a warm welcome to you as well. So now would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'd like to ask Joseph Brannan to please bring us today's invocation in accordance with his faith tradition. Joseph.
Good afternoon, President Lori and fellow Rotarians. Would you pray with me? Fathers, we come together for another week of fellowship. We thank you for the opportunity to gather once again. Thank you for the friendships and the service fostered here in our club. We pray for our fellow Rotarians, our family, and our friends who are ill or in need. Lord, today especially we pray for our community. We thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon our city, but we also ask for special healing during this challenging time in our nation, but specifically in Columbus. We thank you, Father, for those who have accepted the call of duty to serve in law enforcement. I ask that you place your hand of protection, healing, wisdom, and knowledge upon those who serve. Lord, as always, help us to be mindful of the needs of others and to place service above self. Thank you for this meal and the hands that prepared it. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. And don't forget the cans, whether it be coins, cash, or Venmo. Ryan has thrown the QR code up on the screen so you can donate that way as well. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to ask Alston Lyle to bring us today's news.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here is a look at your headlines. The Olympics are underway. The Winter Olympics are in full swing, and despite the fake snow, real medals are being won and lost. As of today, the United States has the third highest medal count at 19, sitting behind Norway's 28 and Germany's 20. And property values increase. As expected, property values in Muskogee County have risen between 8% and 18% over the last 12 months, depending on the reporting source. As further evidence of the booming housing market the economy experienced over the last year, the average days a home is on the market decreased in tandem. And COVID cases are falling. After the post-holiday spike, COVID cases are finally trending downward. Upon review of the average cases over the last 7 days, national reports of COVID cases are down a whopping 40% from the prior week. And Georgia has reported less than half of the cases from the prior week, which is excellent news to me. The Dow Jones was down 184 points at noon today. Your weather forecast is a beautiful sunny with clouds and a high of 75 and a low of 54. And to end, it's extremely hard to beat National Pizza Day and the joy that that day may bring to everyone here, but today is pretty special in and of itself. We're not singing, happy birthday again, don't worry, but it is National Do a Grouch a Favor Day. And yes, that is a real holiday, apparently. And so in that spirit, I encourage you all to go out to the afternoon with a little bit more kindness. Have a good day.
Did you say National Don't Be a Grouch Day? Oh, a favor. Okay, I misunderstood. I thought it was aimed at me again. So I'm beginning to think that the Groundhog Prediction was pretty accurate because this weather feels definitely like springtime, doesn't it? So at this time, I would like to ask Teddy Price to please bring us today's Visiting Rotarians and Guests.
Thank you, President Lori. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. We have a healthy list of guests with us today. And if you will, just raise your hand or stand as I call your name so we can recognize you. Cecil Cheeves has Coach Bobby Howard today. Thank you. Amy Bryan has Pete Temeskin right here. And our speaker, Chief Blackmon, has his assistant chief, J. Dent Fitzpatrick. Michael Toulier has Joe McGuire, the new general manager at WRBL. Greg Countryman has Gerald Miley, owner of the Miley Insurance Agency. Joey Loudermilk has Daniel Horde, right here. And Reggie Thompson has Siobhan Thomas. They're in line over there. Let's give all of our guests a warm round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. You know, it's our honor each week to welcome and to thank a military guest, and so now it's my pleasure to ask Andy Redmond to please introduce today's Colonel Ralph Puckett Jr. Soldier of the Week.
President Lori and fellow Rotarians, it's my honor to introduce to you Sergeant Dan Coyne. Sergeant Coyne is a cavalry scout in a Dark Horse Troop of the 1st Squadron, 16th Cav Regiment, 316th Cav Brigade out at Fort Benning. Sergeant Coyne joined the Army in 2018 from California, came to Fort Benning for his initial entry training, and has been here ever since. He's done many different roles as a cavalry scout, to include a driver, a dismount, Bradley Fighting Vehicle Commander, and he's currently the Ops NCO in his squadron. He's been to the Combat Lifesaver Course, Bradley Commander's Course, has several decorations, including the Army Achievement Medal, Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, and the Global War on Terrorism Medal. He is married to his wife, Megan. Sergeant Coyne, we've talked about some of the stuff I'm going to give you here. I'm going to start with a Rotary Challenge coin. You know what to do with a military challenge coin, so you got to hang on to that. We're going to give you a certificate. We talked about Colonel Ralph Puckett, and as President Lori said, you are the Colonel Ralph Puckett Soldier of the Week, so we got a certificate to honor that. We have a passport to the arts that includes tickets that you and Megan can use to the River Center, Columbus Symphony Orchestra, our attractions at the National Infantry Museum, Columbus State University Theater, and at the Springer. And last, we have a signed copy of Colonel Ralph Puckett's book, Words for Warriors. We hope you'll treasure that. Thank you for all you do, and thanks for being here. You get that, and if you want to speak, go right ahead.
Just like to thank you all for having me here today. It's an honor, and I look forward to getting to meet all of you and learning a little bit more just about life in general.
Sergeant Coyne, what a pleasure to have you, and we would just ask that you take back our gratitude to all the men and women who serve alongside you at Fort Benning, and we would welcome you back at any time. Thank you. So just a few announcements today. First of all is I'd like to recognize one of our superstars, our GRSP student, Haisha, has made the Dean's List at CSU her first semester, so stand up. Not an easy task, and so we are very proud of you. I would like to also call attention to a flyer on your table there. It is in regards to our district grant, Midnight Basketball. We have two workshop events coming up next week. One's on Tuesday evening, the other on Thursday evening, both at Startup Columbus at Ben's place. Ben, I just saw you. Oh, here's the camera. So at Ben's Place, and Ryan Clemens will be leading one of those workshops, and Ben will lead the other. We will have some of the participants that will be serving through the grant. Some of the children will be there for the workshop, so I invite you to please join us from 6 to 8, either Tuesday or Thursday, to interact with the children, tell them a little more about Rotary, and show them about our good fellowship. And I wanted to remind you about the Zoom breakfast, which is this Friday from 8 to 9, and we will have our very own Angie Nobes will be our speaker, and that'll be via Zoom, so just pop in for that. And then lastly, your board met yesterday, and while our COVID numbers are certainly dropping, we don't feel like it's quite safe enough yet to just do away with all of our protocols, but you will notice more 6-person tables, correct? That's a good change, but we ask that you continue to please wear your mask when you're not eating. We're going to watch this for the next few weeks and then revisit it at our next board meeting. So joining me today at the head table is Joseph Brannan, who brought us today's invocation, and now it's my pleasure to ask Reggie Lewis to please introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, President Lori. Good afternoon, Rotarians. It is with great pleasure to introduce our speaker today as Chief Freddie Blackmon of the Columbus Police Department. Chief Blackmon started his career at the department in April of 1986, and he quickly moved up the ranks and through patrol services, as well as working in 911 Center, TAT Squad, and Gang Task Force. As a detective, he worked for Vice Narcotics Squad. As a sergeant, he served in the Bureau of Patrols, Vice Narcotics Squad, Metro Narcotics Task Force, as well as the Juvenile Diversion Center and the Training Division. As a lieutenant, he worked in the Bureau of Patrol Services, Robbery and Homicide, Director of Training Division, while assigned to the Crisis Negotiation Team and Commander for the Mobile Field Force Team. As a captain, he was the Human Resource Director for the Columbus Police Department. As a major, he oversaw the Office of Professional Standards, as we know, OOPS or OPS, if you want to talk about it. But Chief Blackmon has a Master in Science degree in Human Resource Management, a Bachelor in Science degree in Criminal Justice from Troy State. He completed his Management Development Training at the University of Georgia. He also was a Leadership Columbus alumni, and he was a graduate of the 265th session of the FBI National Academy. It's my pleasure to introduce you, Chief Freddie Blackmon.
Thank you to Reggie for the introduction, and I want to acknowledge the President and our person that shared that prayer today. I want to come back to something he mentioned in the prayer. Mr. Brannan, thank you. And to each of you, thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to share with you today. I do not take this opportunity lightly. And the reason why is because information needs to be shared and understanding needs to be received in a very clear and concise manner. I know that oftentimes during our promotion ceremony, I share words of Maya Angelou that states, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So today, I want you to feel as if you are more engaged, more knowledgeable as to what takes place within the Columbus Police Department as it relates to the overview that we will share today. So I want to give you an overview on 2 points. We want to talk about a crime perspective as well as a staffing perspective. Because I know that those are two very important elements as what we are facing in today's policing world. as it relates to crime. In 2021, we saw record numbers as it relates to crime, not just in Columbus, but throughout the United States. And that's what the point I want to get to as far as what was stated in the prayer. When the prayer was to bless us during these challenging times. And we are in challenging times. This is a time when, as I began as Chief of Police in November 2020, this, what we now refer as to this COVID-19 pandemic or epidemic, started that year. And it started from a perspective where really no one had a playbook on how to address it. And as we know, it has continued. And thankfully, we see numbers on the decrease, but we know that COVID-19 is still here in various variants that takes place. So, from a crime perspective, we saw across the United States, cities, law enforcement agencies dealing with crime, investigating crimes at record numbers. Even in Columbus, Georgia, we experienced a record number of violent crimes. Our officers investigated 63 murders in Columbus, of which we are very fortunate to say that we've been able to solve 34 of those cases, and we're still working to solve the remaining cases. We were able to solve those cases because of the connection we have with our community members coming forward, providing information, assisting our investigators, the men and women in our homicide unit, as they work to investigate cases and put the pieces together to make a very solid case for prosecution. And although we experienced that record number of murders in 2021, overall, Part 1 crimes decreased. And Part 1 crimes have been decreasing since trackings from 2016. There have been a decrease. Of course, in 2020, there was a more significant decrease. That was the year that we experienced the advent of COVID-19 in the way we're living in today's world. So we had a very low number then, but even with all we experienced in 2021, overall, Part 1 crimes, the murders, the rapes, the robberies, those types of crimes, overall decreased from even pre-COVID numbers or pre-COVID years. And so, as our command staff met together, we came up with our strategic plan to address crime in our community. And setting a goal to reduce crime. Of course, we know, and you probably have heard me say before, as a police department, we're going to do our part, but it takes all of us. It takes all of us to share together. Law enforcement, our mental health community, our education community, our business community, our clergy, all working together, our nonprofit organizations, all providing their piece. So I say mental health. That's a very serious concern. As of today, as of right now, we have more suicides that have taken place in Columbus to date than murders. More suicides. We've had 2 to take place today. people are of a mindset that's really different than we've ever experienced before. We have a health epidemic that's taking place. We have, as far as law enforcement is concerned, we are working through this health epidemic. We're working through an epidemic of people leaving the workforce, law enforcement included. In 2021, we saw a record number of people leave the workforce. 4+ million people left the workforce. And law enforcement was no exception. We saw a record number of people leave the Columbus Police Department in 2021. So what do? We set our goals, we set our strategic plans, and we focus on accomplishing our goals. We're going to definitely continue our proactive policing approach. We are going to continue to engage our community and educate our community. From the proactive policing approach, we're going into the hotspot locations. Individuals who commit violent crimes, they will be dealt with severely as it relates to officers making cases against them. There are solid cases, putting them in jail and giving them an opportunity to face the judge and the jury in hopes of a successful prosecution by our district attorney's office that will put them in jail for as long as the law will allow. As you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we partnered with our state agency, the Georgia State Patrol, for a crime suppression detail. That detail is viewed as a success, but it's only viewed as a success from one particular angle, from the law enforcement perspective. But there are so many other pieces, as I talked about earlier, with our mental health community and our educational community. There are so many other pieces that have to be put together in order for success to be achieved overall. So just doing it from a one angle standpoint is not going to cause overall success, just from a law enforcement perspective. Although we are going to come up to bat every day and do our jobs. We will not make excuses about our staffing. We're going to be effective, we're going to be creative, and continue to go forward and provide proactive policing. Gang members, we're going after them as well. As we identify gang members, and we realize that there are certain components that prosecutors want to have in place so that a gang-related charge can be applied, gang participation can be applied to an individual. And once we have a documented or validated person as a gang member, we will put those individuals under that gang charge as well, which provides for a more stiffer penalty as they face the judge. Educating our community. We have officers that coordinate our neighborhood watch programs where we meet with neighborhoods, where we go to them and listen to their concerns and share information as well. to make them aware of what should take place in order to put ourselves in a position so we are less likely a victim. We've seen several vehicle break-ins. Individuals break into vehicles and they steal firearms and they use firearms and commit other crimes, or they steal vehicles and commit other crimes. So we want to continue to proactively police our hotspot locations. We want to continue to educate our community and engage our citizens and develop very strong police-community relationships. So individuals will feel comfortable talking to the police, sharing information without fear of being placed in jail. In addition to that, we're going to step up our recruitment and retention strategies. From a recruitment standpoint, as we look back in that same time period, from 2016 to present, we've hired 300 officers. 400 have left in the same time frame. So we see recruitment, hiring officers, we've been able to do that. We were fortunate to receive, in 2008, an opportunity from our city council and mayor at that time to hire an additional 100 officers through the preparation for the base realignment for Benning. Since that time, I told you, we've hired several hundreds of officers since that time. But hundreds more have left. So the question is, what should we do? So from a recruitment standpoint, we will steadily recruit. We will continue to advertise and set out a recruitment campaign that reaches nationwide. We continue to recruit in our Northeast section and around the New York area, as well as locally. We've hired several officers from the New York area because in that area, we know the process to start up with a law enforcement agency is different than in our area. They have unions and other steps to go through before they're hired on, compared to our process here in Columbus. And so we will continue to go there to recruit, as well as other places throughout the United States. But once we get them in, we have to develop strategies to retain our officers. We have officers that leave our department and they go to other agencies. And I will tell you, our officers are well trained. And a lot of agencies are seeking to hire the men and women from the Columbus Police Department. I can attest to our officers being well trained. Not from what I think, but from what I know. I worked in the training division. And so I know the training that takes place. We have very valuable men and women in the Columbus Police Department. But we cannot continue to have a situation where we allow that easy pathway to take place where they go to other agencies. So we established a retention committee, and that committee has come up with some ideas that I will be presenting as strategies that are aimed at causing individuals to be less likely to leave the department. the police officers that we have today, they have different ideas, different wants, different desires than officers from 1986 when I started. Officers today, they experience so many pressures, so much scrutiny from the public about policing. And I know there have been some throughout law enforcement as a whole that have not represented in a favorable manner. I'll be the first to tell you that. But that's not the majority. But all officers are held accountable for their actions, and rightfully so. We should be held accountable, and we will be held accountable. But that causes the men and women in law enforcement today to consider other options. That causes them to think about their livelihood, their families, their children. And so, as a community, we have to bond together and put packages together that will be helpful and aimed directly at retaining these men and women, because they do an awesome job. They answer the call every day. They are willing to run into the danger zone when everyone else is running away from danger. So they are definitely to be commended for what they do. So with crime taking place and officers being scrutinized and then with the market being the way it is, with opportunities for jobs that virtually anywhere, these men and women are taking advantage of that. But we have to make sure we take care of them. And as the chief of police, as I work with my command staff, we will always work to support the men and women of the Columbus Police Department to ensure we provide the equipment that they need, the moral support that they need, and provide them opportunities to advance further in their careers. And as a community, we're thankful to you for being so supportive of the men and women of the Columbus Police Department. Even through the sales tax vote, we were able to receive a benefit from that, and we are appreciative of that. And so, what I share with you today is that we don't want any of our citizens to be in fear of crime and thinking that there are not enough officers to handle it. We have men and women of the Columbus Police Department that are very capable of engaging any interactions. We need support. We need individuals to call us and make us aware as to what has taken place. The sheriff and the deputies at the Muscogee County Sheriff's Office, we're out on the streets together. We will continue to work together to provide safety and protection for our community. We will never, ever make an excuse because of the number of officers we have. But we will always answer the call and address the concerns head on. So as we talk about crime, as we talk about staffing, just a brief overview. But I want to hear from you and give you an opportunity to ask your specific questions as it relates to crime or staffing or any other related matter concerning the police department.
Make a quick announcement.
Okay?
If you would raise your hand if you have a question, we're going to bring the microphones over to you so that those online can hear the question. Thank you.
Hey, Chief, in some of the communities that you referenced with police who have not represented themselves well, numbers are leaving because, according to the news, they perceive a lack of support and respect from the communities that they're in. How does your force view their support and respect from Columbus community?
Right, so excellent question. And as I stated earlier, we appreciate the support. We've been fortunate in Columbus, very fortunate. And I've been here since 1986, April 1986, and I've witnessed a community that have wholeheartedly supported our police department, year in and year out. And there have been some times when there may have been a time or two where we stumped our toe, but we still receive your support because you know that the Columbus Police Department will hold the officers accountable, address what needs to be addressed, and continue to provide quality service to our citizens. We have received nothing but support, 100% plus from our citizens, and we're appreciative of that.
I have a question in terms of our young people. Do you have a program where you are able to educate the younger generation, especially in the high schools, middle school and high schools, educate them in terms of what our police department stands for, what your mission is, the value that you have to our community? There's such a disrespect, I think, from our younger generation, and I just wanted to pose that question.
Right, it's another excellent question regarding our interaction in bringing in our younger people with their mindsets, and that's what it's going to take. It's a mindset change. We do interact with our high school, in elementary and middle school as well, but more specifically in our high schools, currently there are two high schools that have a public safety program, Hardaway High and Shaw High. So we have officers that will go to those schools and interact with those students, as well as other high schools. In fact, we actually try to recruit students to become police cadets. And that's another part of our recruitment strategy. I was fortunate to receive the approval from council to be able to reclassify 20 positions to go along with 5 positions we already have as cadets. So 20 police officer positions were reclassified to make a total of 25 cadet positions. And in those cadet positions, we're looking to hire individuals from age 18 to 20 years of age who have graduated high school and have a valid driver's license. And we want to bring them aboard and teach them the culture within the Columbus Police Department and allow them to ride alongside and work alongside police officers. They would not be carrying firearms. They would learn administrative work that officers do, and they get the opportunity to do a ride-along program, all the while being paid a salary, and they will be hired on as an employee. So we go to those schools and try to shape the mindset of our young ones, and we aim to do even more interaction within our school system as we go forward.
Of those 400 officers you lost last year, did you see a rise in people who were maybe at 12 or 15 years of service that left early and lost their benefits of having worked for the department?
Well, just to be clear, From 2016 to 2021, we lost 400 officers. Now, last year, we lost 84 officers. As a matter of fact, from 2016 to 2021, we had 1 year on the plus side, hiring versus those officers that resigned. Now, as far as the breakdown, the category is across the board. As far as officers may have a couple of years, officers may have anywhere up to 5 years or 10 years. There have been a few, a lesser number with 15 plus. The majority has less than 15 years, but and they will decide. Some have decided to go to other law enforcement agencies. And keep in mind, with Columbus being the second largest city in Georgia, that means we have a high volume of calls through our 911 center. And so our officers have responded to over 265,000 calls in 2021. And so there are some agencies that are around us and some agencies that are across our border. They do not answer that volume of calls. And so our officers, they answer a very high volume of calls. And we've had some officers that have tried to do something different with a different agency and realized it was actually too slow, and they have come back to our department. And so, but that happens. But it's anywhere I say from 15 years or less, they would try something different.
I lived in Atlanta for 17 years, and all those smaller municipalities surrounding Atlanta always had a difficult time of maintaining a competitive pay rate because
Right.
Atlanta paid better than anybody, but it also was the worst place to work. Is Columbus in the forefront of how much we pay the officers? You got to come to it?
We're very fortunate that our council has allowed, our mayor, city manager, and council have allowed a pay study, has contracted with a vendor that's actually in the process now to establish a pay study, or to undergo a pay study so we can establish a pay plan. And $10 million have been set aside to go towards the implementation of a pay plan. And so, so once that pay study has been done, then the decision will have to be made as to whether we will lead, meet, or lag the market. And of course, if we say lead the market, that will only be temporary, because as you just said, there will be another agency that will step up and be the new leader. So we want to be at a competitive range where we can competitively recruit against other law enforcement agencies in our surrounding area and of our comparable size as well.
Yeah, question about the number of murders we had in Columbus last year, 64, I think you said. Do they fall into any categories, or how do you look at those, whether they're gang-related or domestic or robbery-related? You know, how do they break down?
Right.
And how do you come up with a strategy to deal with that?
Okay. All right, you guys are on point. You did good homework, asked some good questions. So of the 63 murders that occurred in 2021, as we look at the breakdown, the majority of those murders are some type domestic, family violence related type case, where individuals are very familiar with one another. In fact, except for maybe a couple, all of the murders that we've investigated, based on the information we've received thus far, individuals are known to one another. Of that number, 10 we've identified to have gang relation, some type of gang interaction. And certainly the majority of them have been either family violence related, someone who's in a relationship, they do not want to leave the relationship, as someone that the other person has stated to them, they no longer want to be a part of the relationship. And it ends up in a violent outcome. We've seen that several times. And of course, there are some situations where it's drug related, where a drug deal goes bad. Somebody ends up trying to rob an individual instead of meeting to make the purchase of drugs. And we noticed that take place. Those are the type of cases that we've identified as trending for 2021. And as I talk to chiefs of police and other agencies, particularly those agencies that are comparable to our size, they say the exact same thing that occurs in their area. I talked to one chief, and he said, what I explained to him, it sounded as if he was listening to me, he said it sounded as if he was looking into the mirror, talking to himself, because what I explained is exactly what he experienced at his police department. The causes of the murders and the types of murders that were occurring, same types of cases. And like I said, of course, our responsibility is Columbus, and we will always be responsible for what takes place in Columbus. But what I want to make you aware is this is something that we have noticed occurring throughout the United States in similar fashion.
Hey, Chief, I have a question for you. Many law enforcement departments require a college education, or there is some sort of glide path where the officers achieve a college education within the first couple of years. When it comes to talent management and your assessment and selection, training and development and promotion and retention, has your staff or committee looked at using a college education or a path to a college education as one way to improve talent management?
And to improve what was the last
To improve talent management and talent retention.
Okay, so regarding the requirements to be hired on, currently an individual can be hired on with a high school diploma or GED. Now, in years past, we've had to make adjustments with our qualifications over the years because there are a lot of individuals who do not jump into the line to be a police officer. We made adjustments. So, for example, when I was hired on, the requirement was so many college hours, whether it's semester or quarter hours. And then we transitioned from there to you had to have an associate's, at minimum, an associate's degree. But then somewhere along the way, when we noticed the trend where several officers were leaving, and this was several years ago, we changed to what we have now, high school diploma or GED. Now, if an individual goes to school and they're hired on with a high school diploma or GED, but then they continue on into college, then they are paid an incentive for obtaining their associate's degree, the bachelor's degree, and the master's degree. There is an incentive that they are paid for that. And that's part of, when I was mentioning earlier, our retention committee, that's one of the areas that our retention committee has brought up as to some type of tuition reimbursement or opportunity to go to school at no cost. Of course, when we look at that, we definitely have to ensure that we manage that properly so we can get our return on investment. If we invest in someone to go to school, we want to have something in place where that individual would be held to work in our department for X amount of years going forward if we're able to get that in place.
thank you. A year ago, I got to train all of your officers in mental health.
Right.
And it was one of the most rewarding things I've done since I've been in Columbus. And I just want to say thank you for those men and women who go out every day and protect this community.
Right. Well, you're certainly welcome, and let me thank you, because mental health, as I stated earlier, is very real. As a fact, the Assistant Chief, Dent Fitzpatrick, and I are working on a opportunity now to be able to establish a co-responder initiative where we have someone to address these mental health related calls. Because a lot of our calls are mental health related. And so the proper way to deal with those calls is try to interact with the individuals and try to de-escalate the situation. And jail for that person is really not the solution. It's being able to get that person into treatment and try to address their concerns that they're presenting with. So definitely mental health is something on our horizon to address even more.
Chief Blackmon, I think you can see by the number of questions that you received that this group was very interested in all that you had to say. And Tom, thank you for ending with gratitude, because I think we all say thank you to the men and women that serve with you so much. And to commemorate your visit today, we will place a children's book in our local library with your name inscribed on it. I would like to re-welcome all of our visitors and guests, especially Sergeant Coyne. Thank you for being here. It was a treat to have you. We will have a replay of today's program on YouTube as well as our Facebook page. A quick reminder, those directories, if you haven't picked up your directory, I'm going to keep reminding you. Now, you won't want to miss next week's program because our STAR student program is back in person. So next week we'll have all of our high-performing students here, and we'll honor them. And so until we meet next week, let's continue to make a difference.